Welcome to lecture number 2 as part of the week 7 internship design for engineering education. We have been talking about the dimensions of internship design. So we looked at the goals and outcomes of how to structure the goals and outcomes and objectives for internships. So let us continue. We will now look at the structure and timeline of internships. What structural options do we have as an education institution as part of our curriculum? Now, there are three broad structural options that are available. The first is summer internship, which is the timeline between the intervening period between two successive terms, which typically starts, the one term starts in the January. It typically goes from January through May. And we can have the subsequent term semester, which is starting from August and run through December. So that intervening period is what is referred to as summer internship. Typically, there is also something called as a final internship, or they also call it as final semester internship. And that is typically the duration of that is anywhere from 4 months to 6 months duration, whereas the summer internship duration is typically 2 to 2.5 months. That's all the time that we'll have. So that is so final internship is another structural option that we can incorporate in our curriculum. And concurrent internship is an additional option that is coming along. Typically when we send students for internships, they will expect the students to be available full time as part of the work. But sometimes as part of the curriculum, they will also permit students to pursue additional coursework as part of the internship. Okay, because that is where, when I talk about the flexibility aspects later on, they will say that this is for doing this particular internship, you don't have to physically come to the organization, you don't have to physically spend time inside the company. So they will say remote internships. So whenever the remote internships are there, they may permit students to pursue coursework as well. Okay, so that is what I call as concurrent internship. So there could be multiple structural options that are available. And as I talk about later in this lecture, we may want to have sufficient flexibility available in our curriculum. But I just wanted to point out that these structural options are there. In terms of where do you fit it into the curriculum also, so summer internships can be slotted in typically for the fourth semester, at the end of the fourth semester, in between the fourth semester and the fifth semester, or in between the sixth semester and the seventh semester. In most curricular structures, the internship in between the sixth semester and the seventh semester is actually mandatory, whereas the one between fourth and fifth can be kept as optional. In many cases, in the intervening summer between the second and the third semester, the students would not have covered enough of the curriculum. They would not have gained enough skills. So many industries also are reluctant to offer internships. But if the students are able to find something on their own, that can be encouraged. But typically the fourth semester and the sixth semester summer internships, institutions themselves can proactively approach industries and tell them that you have students who have completed 4 semesters of coursework with substantial skills, and if they can provide them with internships. So in the intervening after the 4th semester and after the 6th semesters are definitely great opportunities to incorporate as part of your internship program. Something which is always usually mandatory is the 8th semester final in a typical 4-year program. Let me call it as the final semester. Final semester internships are generally mandatory, and they are also of longer duration. Industry do talk about the the entire 6 month availability, 4 to 6 months is what they will expect the students to be available for that particular internship. So that is the structural, the timeline options that are available. And most recently, although I have not listed here, there are 11-month internships also are getting more popular these days. So these 11-month internships can typically be offered as a concurrent internship. So which means that this will start typically in the 7th semester itself in a 8-semester program, and it will overlap with the 8th semester as well, while they are concurrently doing some amount of coursework as well, because it is practically not possible to complete all the credits that are needed in a 6 semester window. So it will spill over into the 7th semester. So you can create a small amount of course workload, coursework in the 7th semester, while they kick off the 11-month internship in the 7th semester itself. So that also could be a structural and timeline option that you can think of. So let's try to understand the dimension of mentoring and support in internship design. Okay, from the industry side, what is it that you can expect? The industry can provide training on specific tools and technologies as needed. Right? It is well understood and accepted that not every institution can prepare students with all the tools used by all companies in the industry. Right? It doesn't work that way. And so the industries also understand. So if there is a specific tool that the specific project in which the intern is expected to work, the organization, the industry, that particular company will definitely provide mentors who will teach them how to use that particular tool, how to use that particular. Most of the times when I talk about the tool, it could be software tools, or if you, depending upon the industry, if you are in mechanical engineering, if you are a civil engineering, there are very, very advanced industrial tools that only companies use, right? Because why is it available only in the companies or the industry? Because they are so expensive, correct? So, so it is not practical for industries, for education institutions to acquire all those tools. So that specific mentoring will be provided by the industry. Okay, and they will also assign mentors who will prepare the students on the professional practices. Remember when we talked about what is internship and what are the goals of internship? So these professional practices which cannot be taught in educational environments, right? That can only be honed in the industrial setting. Those professional practices, they will assign mentors who will teach them how to do that. Let me give you a very simple example, right? So one of the professional practice could be as simple as how do you report the work that you're doing, or depending upon the nature of the work. Now, if you're talking about a software professional, so those software professionals are expected to log in their work using some kind of a ticketing system wherein they are supposed to provide status updates. So they will train them on that pattern. Now, for example, Jira is the name of a specific tool that software industry very widely use to track the progress of assigned tasks. So as a professional practice, you are taught how to log into that particular system and how to look at the tasks that are assigned to you and how do you update the status of those tasks. Those are the things that can be taught, that can be learned only as part of the internship, and that level of mentoring and support will come from the industry. And from the institution side, what is it that we can do? Because this is a very difficult question here, because much of the internship activity itself, the student will carry out under the direct supervision of the industry. There is very little or no role that is given to the institution due to various reasons. There could be one of the most important reasons why institutions are usually never involved in in the internship execution itself, it could be the need for intellectual property protection. It could be for the purpose of proprietary technologies, trade secrets, and so on. So they don't want any of that to come out of the company itself. In fact, in many cases, in all cases, I can say, even before the student steps into the company, into the organization, they are made to sign lengthy non-disclosure agreements. Okay, so to that extent, it is indeed a fact that the institution has got very little role in this mentoring and support once the internship starts. Okay, but having said that, there could be some soft support that we can provide to the people who are doing internship, to the students who are doing internship, right? It might be beneficial to assign faculty mentors for students who are already doing internship, right? It is possible that much of the things that they need to know, either they already know, and if they don't know, and if something which is very specific to the industry mentors will provide that particular gap. But if there is a gap in the abilities of the student, in which they are expected to have learned something as part of their educational experience, that is where the institution can step in, right? Having this particular interaction with the interns who are still our own students, right, as part of the institutions, right? Having that particular touch, having that particular contact, and having to tell them, right, in case you run into any trouble in the work that you are trying to do, if they are expecting that you should already know certain things, then that fallback that you provide by having a faculty mentor will go a long way in the student fulfilling the internship duties in a much more effective way, with a lot of confidence and without getting under pressure, because it is also a stressful experience for the interns, right? So we have to remember that this is possibly the first time they are stepping out of the comfort zone of an educational institution. So they do require some kind of backing from the institution itself. So that mechanism that we have to bring in. So it will be unfair for the student to assume that, okay, now that you have become an intern, our job is over, our responsibility is over. Okay, so that is probably not a good thing to do from a student support perspective. But do remember, these students who are going for the internship, this is your first opportunity to get feedback as well. Okay, if you recall the NBA accreditation, right? So there is a big section which says that how do you incorporate alumni feedback into your curriculum. So interns are the most early form of alumni for us, right? They are just about to graduate, especially if you are structuring this internship towards the end of the program. So they are the ones who will immediately give you that particular feedback. So to that extent, maintaining that connect during the internship period, both for the benefit of the student as well as the benefit of the institution, is extremely valuable and important. Okay, and as additional support to the student themselves, you can give them access to extra learning resources, open up the library for them, or whatever, right? So if there are institutional subscriptions that are available to professional learning material, you give them access, so that because at the end of the day, it is also reflecting the institution's reputation out there, right? So it is in our own interest to have a support system during the internship period itself, because they are still our own students, they have not yet graduated. Assessment and evaluation dimension is a little tricky for internship. Okay, So the first question that comes to our mind is, in how do you even set this up? What will be the assessment and evaluation, right? Just to distinguish between assessment and the evaluation, these two terms, it may sound equivalent or even similar, but they are different. So assessment is the act of conducting some activity which can be evaluated to to measure whether the student has succeeded or not. Okay, so assessment is the act of, so examination is an assessment activity. Evaluation is the grading activity of that examination. So in the context of internships, examinations are not conducted for internships. So examination is not a suitable assessment tool for internships. Okay. So then if examinations are not the assessment tool, then what is the assessment tool, right? The assessment itself, the assessment work product is the work product that the student works on is what is assessed and evaluated. Okay. So typically the assessment method is more of a review. So and that particular review will contribute to the evaluation. Then you give feedback, because as I said, this is not about success or failure. Internship is about the learning process. So you do the evaluation of the work product. Okay, you assess for its quality, various things, and then wherever it is not meeting the expected levels, then you give feedback. So that is the assessment and evaluation role in internship. But then the next comes the question of saying, whose responsibility is it to do assessment and evaluation? Okay, typically it is the industry that is offering the internship that does the assessment and evaluation. Due to all the reasons that we talked about, companies, organizations will be extremely reluctant to allow institutions to access the work product of the students, produced by the students, due to copyright, proprietary issues, trade secrets, and so on. It is just not practical at all, which means that as an education institution, you cannot even demand a detailed report of the work that they have done. Okay. So this is also something that education institutions have to be very careful about. Okay. Now, you please make sure that as an institution, we don't create any rules and regulations which forces students to prepare reports. Okay. So you make it very clear that there is nothing that should be included in, even if you are asking for reports, you make it very clear to the students that they should not include anything which is proprietary, which is a violation, because if indeed, even out of innocent mistake, if they end up doing that without the knowledge of the company, and if it gets revealed, then it could lead to serious legal consequences as well, including blacklisting of the institution. So that is a very serious matter. So which is why it is really safe to create some mechanism wherein the institution does not get directly involved in the assessment and evaluation of this internship work products. Okay. So then you say, okay, then how are we supposed to measure it? Now, how do we even track the progress and things like that? Well, it is not the institution's prerogative to track it. So we will hope and assume that the industry, it is the industry which is doing it. They will have their own methods, they will have their own procedures to do that, and the institutions neither can dictate nor can demand that we want visibility into that aspect. Which is why the completion certificate is possibly the only thing that we can expect, and possibly they will add this word called, and their performance was satisfactory or good or things like that. And it is entirely up to them if they want to give it as excellent, good, average kind of a thing, but most of the times they will simply use the word satisfactorily done, and marks and grades are rarely, if at all, uh, awarded for internships. So we have to structure our curriculum in such a way that these measures do not contribute in any quantitative way towards the computation of the CGPA or things like that. Okay, so typically in a curriculum, this can be included as a mandatory line item which will appear in the transcript, but more as a pass-fail, completed, as a completion requirement activity, which means that if it is a pass-fail kind of a activity in the transcript, it also does not contribute to the CGPA, which means that even if credits are assigned to it, they will not contribute because there won't be any letter grade associated with it of A plus, A minus, and so on. Okay, and it is safe to keep it as a pass fail as part of it. So this is, but again, it depends from university systems to university systems, and if indeed the university system demands and requires you to assign such letter grades to those credits and so on, then the institutions have to make the extra effort to work with organizations and share with them that they are required as part of the completion certificate. You have to give them broad guidelines on what kind of letter grades that they need to assign. So you have to understand that this is something that usually institutions cannot be allowed to assign. So you have to work with the organizations which are providing that internship to provide you with the necessary guidelines and provide them with the necessary guidelines on what kind of letter grades and to assign for the students. Okay, now, so this can be, if you are a deemed university, for example, then you do have the freedom to structure the internship program in a way that does not require letter grades to be assigned. But if you are part of a university system wherein the university curriculum mandates you to assign letter grades, which eventually contributes to the CGPA, then those guidelines have to be shared as part of the partnership with the industry for the internship program, so that they can provide the necessary information to the institution for the purpose of graduation and computing the CGPA and so on. The last dimension, you say, is there a scope for innovation and adaptation in this whole internship design process, right? Indeed, I'm trying to provide the inputs from an institution's perspective. It is possible to create highly innovative internship programs which will incorporate lots of you should incorporate a lot of flexibility into your internship design. Okay, that is very critical to promote innovation as part of your internship design. Okay, because internship norms can vary from organization to organization. Okay, so what are the kinds of flexibility we are talking about, right? So we are talking about flexibility in terms of say the duration. Okay, so when you are creating the curriculum, you provide flexible. It is okay to say that students should do 6 months internship, but then to provide flexibility to say that can that 6 months be earned over 2 separate internships, 3 months and 3 months. That is one way of looking at it. Can it be split across 2 separate summers? Okay, or can they do part of it in their final semester, part of it in their penultimate semester, so that the remaining time they will do some amount of coursework. And these are all the flexibilities that we have to be able to accommodate, because there could be companies, organizations who say that we do only 3 months internship. There could be, they can say we will do only 6 month internship, which means that is something there. I have come across organizations which now say that they will offer only 11-month internships. How do you accommodate that? Do you have the flexibility in the curriculum to be able to do that, right? So that is something, as an educator and as a person who can influence the curriculum design, please bear that in mind, because internship structures are becoming extremely rigid. Only those institutions which are nimble and flexible in their internship design will get greater opportunities, will be able to provide greater opportunities to the students across a wide spectrum that is out there. We should also be flexible enough to talk about paid versus unpaid internships, because depending upon, especially these days, we have the startup ecosystem as being a very, very fertile opportunity to provide internships. And startups, being what they are, having their own challenges, they provide extremely exciting opportunities, but it won't be possible for them to pay the equivalent amount of stipend which probably an established organization will provide. Right? So they do provide a minimum amount of stipend just for to allow the students to, say, travel to whatever, right? So if they are especially going to a different city, maybe some amount of accommodation and so on, that can be a bare minimum. So we have to be flexible as an institution when we are designing these internships, not to mandate anything, right? So be nimble and be flexible even from the stipend point of view. The third flexibility that institutions should provide is not to be very picky about technologies, domains, industry sectors in general, right? So if you are, for example, if you are trying to design an internship program for, say, software professionals, right? We cannot be saying that, okay, we don't want people from the healthcare industry. We don't want our students to be doing interns in this particular sector, that sector, because more opportunities they are there in this sector, there are no opportunities in that sector. That is a highly detrimental aspect to get into when you are designing the internship program for your institution. Okay, so be flexible, be open to various domains. Similarly, from technologies as well. Okay, it may not be a great idea to provide technologies, to be very particular about technologies. You cannot say everybody is doing AI and ML, and you cannot insist that my students should be given internship only in the AI ML domain, right? It doesn't work that way. And the other thing that is now emerging is the location as well. Okay, now with lots and lots of now organizations have learned to work remotely. Okay, for them, having the interns physically in the organization, that may impose additional overheads for the organization. They have to find them a place to sit and work. They have to find them a machine. They have to cater to so many logistics aspects of it. So they may say that we will provide internship, only remote internship. Institutions' policies and procedures must be geared to be able to accept that, okay, for the benefit of our students, right? So if the organization is okay, right, to allow the students to work with remotely, that's perfectly fine. In fact, there could be organizations which will insist that students should come physically into the company. Okay, there also, I mean, it may so happen that particular organization, that particular industry is present in a remote location. So you cannot say that, okay, our students are all there in this particular big city, they won't be able to commute, they won't be able to travel, right? So all those things should never be part of your overall internship design, right? Be as flexible, as nimble as possible to meet let us keep reminding ourselves, right? Every internship is different. Every internship offer, drive is different. The industry could be different. The domain could be different. Okay. And we should also support different forms of customization in terms of the selection process. We should not be very rigid about saying that suddenly if an organization comes and says that we will conduct a written test, you cannot say, no, please select it based on their CGPA. It is entirely their prerogative. So don't hard code any of those things. The dates of the internships, as I already talked about, so be flexible on that one. What branches that they want and they want to take, right? So you do, as an institution, you cannot say that if you are inviting a specific organization for internship, that they should compulsorily take people from all branches. So that's not practical, right? So be adaptive and be innovative in the way as an institution we are able to create this internship program. Okay. So just to summarize, right? So the internship design process itself is it needs to be well thought out. It's not something that suddenly we will decide. We cannot take some broad guidelines given by regulatory authorities. We have to think through from a practical perspective as well, because it is indeed the cornerstone for any professional program or for any student belonging to any professional program to succeed. And designing internship, it requires very careful planning across multiple dimensions, to a limited extent across multiple stakeholders as well. The three stakeholders we talked about, the students, the industry and the institution, it is the students' interest. So we have to keep that in mind, correct? So that has to be a very important element in all the entire internship design. And from a delivery point of view, both institutions and organizations share equal responsibility. Institutions have the responsibility to provide students who have the necessary classroom skills, right, to be able to work on these industrial opportunities. And organizations have the responsibility to own, train, provide them with the necessary professional skills in order to succeed once they complete the internship and take up full-time organizational responsibilities. Okay, so that is the overall aspect of internships and internship designs. We will get into the further details about many of these aspects in the subsequent lectures.